If you haven't watched the video on how 7th chords are made, please stop and watch that video first. This video was on 7th chords with the roots on the E string. The first thing you want to do is find the root. All these roots will be on the E string. Let's do all these chords like they are on your 5th fret A. So your A would be here. Here's an octave. Here's another octave. Avoid those A. Those are all your roots in your E string. I call these chords rock and roll 7th chords. I give most chords names that helps you remember them. Rock and roll, these are used mainly in rock. You wouldn't use these same voicings for a jazz dominant chord, or if you wanted a jazz sounding minor 7th chord or a jazz sounding major 7th chord. These are not the voicings you would use. These are more like rock and pop versions of these chords. Alright, the first chord we're going to talk about is a major 7th chord. What makes a major 7th different is it has the natural 7, so it's 1, 3, 5, 7. And that comes from doing this. Here's your octave. That lowers to the major 7th right here. You're going to have to move your fingers, switch your fingers around to get those chords. So play an A major, which is like this. And then you're going to lower, usually your pinky finger, that to the natural 7, so it looks like this. You might have to move your fingers all around to get that sound. The next chord is a dominant 7th, so you're going to have to lower the 7th by a half step. I think it's easier to think of all these as coming from a major triad. So if you look back at your major triad over here, here's your root, your 5th, your octave, your 3rd. This note right here is going to lower. This is your octave is going to lower by 2 half steps or 1 whole step to become the flat 7. So that looks like this right here. This note is the same as lowering it to here. So that's your dominant 7th chord. So this is really easy to do. All you do is think of taking off your pinky finger and letting this barred note start to sound. So it looks like this over here. If this were a major triad, you'd be fretting here, but since it's dominant, you're letting go, and you get this sound. This as the flat 7 to the chord. So to go to a minor 7th chord, you have 2 alterations here. You have to lower the 3rd, and you have to lower the 7th. So you have 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. So to do that, here is the octave, just like for the dominant chord. This is going to be lowered to the flat 7. And this is your 3rd, which needs to get lowered to the flat 3. So this barred note plays most of these pitches, and it looks just like this over here. So root, 5th, flat 7, flat 3, 5th, octave. That's the shape of your E string minor 7 chord. All right, let's review all the chords. So first you have your major triad, and if you lower your octave a half step to here, that becomes your major 7 chord. That's the one change that needs to happen. Although this chord, you have to rearrange your fingers. It's not as simple as the other chords. If you want to make this a dominant 7 chord, you're going to take your pinky off, but that's it, because this will continue to bar and not play that flat 7. So that's what this chord over here looks like. If you want to do a minor 7 chord, you have to do a couple things. You have to let go of your 3rd, so that lowers to the flat 3, and your octave, so that lowers to the flat 7, so that way you get this chord shape over here. Before going on, I would just review all the chords and listen to them. Playing A major, then playing A major 7, A dominant 7, and an A minor 7th, many times till you get the different sounds of each one of those. Then like before, pick a root, and then mutate your way through all the chords. Okay, now we're talking about 7th chords on the A string. And again, these are all going to come from the major triad and knowing that shape and being comfortable with that and making alterations to that. So here's your A major triad. If you want to go from a major, first thing we want to do is ID the roots. So these are all A string chords. Let's do this like this is the 3rd fret C. So it's like we're doing C major for all these chords. 3rd fret, that's a really terrible looking C. Here is your root. Here is your other root. And that'll be the same for all these voicings. Your main root is right there in your A string. You've got to know where that root is. To convert this major triad to a major 7th triad, this is your octave is going to go down 1 half step to the natural 7. So that's what this shape looks like right here. So your octave will mutate down a half step. So then you have 1, 5, natural 7, 3. You're going to be most likely going to have to rearrange your fingers on playing this chord. So again, I call these rock and roll chords. These are like A string, rock and roll, major 7, because these are good for pop and for rock music. Now, talking about a dominant chord, if you look over here, the dominant has the flat 7 on it. So we're going to go back to our major triad, and we're going to lower the octave. So here's a root, 5th octave, a whole step. So now it's a flat 7 to that note. So this pitch is going to lower a whole step to the flat 7, which looks just like this chord over here. So if this note goes down a whole step, right to right there, it looks like this dominant chord. So you have 1, 5, flat 7, 3. This is easy. All you have to do on this really is take off your middle finger. Just remove your middle finger and you go from major to dominant. Now if we want to go to minor 7 has 2 alterations, a flat 3 and a flat 7. So going back to our A string triad, our octave is going to go down to the flat 7, and our flat 3, which is right here, our major third, is going to go down to the flat 3. I misspoke. Our major third will go to the flat 3. So it looks like this chord right here. Now this shape is very similar to the E string dominant chord. We have 1, octave, flat 7, flat 3. You can also think of this as the minor triad. This would be the minor triad. You let go of that note to there. Here is a minor triad right here. So if you lower this octave to the flat 7, then you get the minor 7 chord over here. So think about your minor triad, you just lower the octave down a whole step, and that's this voicing right here. Again, with all these things, before you go on, review how to get to all the chords. Just do this whole above section. Play the major, play major 7, play dominant, play minor 7, and hear how they all alter and relate and change. And then practice. Pick a note and play each chord and move around. This should take some time because this is a lot to memorize in a short period of time. Goodbye.